Hello, everybody. Welcome to this. Welcome again to part 4. In the earlier video of 4.1, I was not able to complete the recording, so I'm continuing with the detectors of which I was explaining in the part for GC part 4. So that you can consider it as 4.1. This you can consider it as a 4.2 by n. So let us continue. We were talking of uh, electron capture detector. Now you can see in this diagram that you are having a chamber in which there is almost a vacuum, and you have a radioactive beta emitter. Now that vertical black strip which you are seeing in the center is the beta emitter, which is made from nickel 63. It's a radioactive substance which emits beta particles or electrons. On the right side, you can see that you are having an inlet from the column. Whatever comes out from the column comes into the chamber, and that is initially it will be the carrier gas, which can be either nitrogen or helium, and the beta particles which are there, they will emit. They will be emitted by the beta emitter, and they will ionize the carrier gas. Now, when the carrier gas is ionized, you will get positive ions and electrons. Now, in the electron capture detector, you are having two electrodes. You can see the lined part in the instrument, that is on the left side and right side. You have the lined part, that is the two electrodes. Now, because of the ions and the electrodes, ions, electrons, and the electrode, you get a current. Okay, so the baseline is a current of a certain value in the chromatogram. Once the analyte components they come into the instrument into the detector, if that analyte component from the column is having an electronegative element like chlorine or any other electronegative element, it will start attracting the electrons which are there in the chamber. So as a result of which the quantity of electrons will decrease. The positive ions from the carrier gas will be there, but the electrons will be consumed or will be absorbed by the electronegative element from the sample component. As a result of which the current will start to decrease. Okay, because one at the neck, the positive electrode, you will not have any electrons remaining reaching, so the current will fall. Once the once the gas containing the compound goes out to the waste, then only carrier gas will again come, and then the current will rise again. Now, when the second component comes in, again the same thing will happen. If it is having electronegative element, the current will fall, and once it goes out, it will again you will get a rise. So basically, what you will get is inverted peaks in this case. Usually, chromatographic peaks are upright, but in this case, you will get a baseline current which is at a high value, and as soon as the compounds come in, you will get a inverted peak. For every compound which is electronegative and entering the chamber, you will get inverted peaks. So this is how the detector functions, and it is very useful for determining halogen or electronegative elements. So the thermionic detector is selective towards organic compounds containing. Sorry, next one we have to see the thermionic detector. We have completed with the electron capture. Next one is the thermionic detector. Is the last in the series of detectors which we have got to see. This particular detector is very sensitive or selective to organic compounds containing phosphorus and nitrogen. Now, its response to phosphorus atom is approximately 10 times greater than to a nitrogen atom, and 10 is to 4 to 10 is to 6 larger than a carbon atom. That means compared to carbon atom, nitrogen and phosphorus, the response of this detector is very high. Okay, so it's very useful for detecting phosphorus and nitrogen containing compound. It is more sensitive. This detector is more sensitive 500 times to phosphorus containing compounds and 50 times more sensitive to nitrogen bearing compounds. Okay, the structure of this detector is similar to your flame ionization detector. So I'll just revisit that and explain you the difference in this. It's the same diagram, but there is a slight difference between the flame ionization and the thermionic detector. Column effluent and the hydrogen and air comes in, and in the center, through the inlet they come in, and the center flame is produced. Above the flame is a collector. Now in the thermionic detector there is one more thing which is present, which is a rubidium bead, rubidium silicate bead. That bead is at about 180 volts above voltage. It's got a voltage above the voltage of the collector, 180 volts more than that. Now that results in a temperature of around 600 degrees, 600 to 800 degrees due to the flame also, and in that plasma is produced, and lot of how it happens it's not known, but in that plasma the rubidium surrounding the rubidium bead, rubidium silicate bead, you get a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen ions. Now that will result in a very large current even if small quantities of phosphorus or nitrogen is present in the compounds which are coming from the column. So that is why the sensitivity to nitrogen and phosphorus is more, and this is the detector, which is your thermionic detector, similar to flame ionization, but only thing is you have a bead here. I have not shown the bead here, but it is just about the collector. You can see the collector in the diagram. Above the collector you have a bead which is of rubidium silicate, right? So this description of this is given. It is similar to your FID in structure. Column effluent is mixed with hydrogen, passes through the flame tip and is ignited. So with the help of the electrical igniter on the left side, you can ignite it and you get a flame. Gas then flows around a rubidium silicate bead which is maintained at about 180 volts with respect to the collector. Bead forms a plasma having a temperature of 600 to 800 degrees Celsius. Exactly what occurs in the plasma to produce a large number of ions of phosphorus or nitrogen containing molecules is not understood, but large ion current results. So we don't know why this happens, but the large number of ions of phosphorus and nitrogen are produced. Now this helps in determining compounds of these two elements. Okay, so this is about the thermionic detector. Now there are two more detectors, which are the mass spectrometers and the uh, FTIR, that we'll see under the hyphenated methods. There are other detectors also, but we'll be confining our discussion to only 5 detectors which we have seen. We saw flame ionization in the last lecture and 3YN, and in this 4.1 we saw the thermal conductivity detector and the sulfur chemiluminescent detector and partly the electron capture detector. In this part of the video we saw the electron capture detector diagram explanation. Finally we saw the thermionic detector. Okay, thank you very much. In the next lecture we will be seeing the columns are the most important part of a chromatographic gas chromatography, along with the detectors and columns are the two most important things which you should know very well in GC. Thank you.